Welcome back to Breaking Chains and Building Dreams, where we dive into stories that shape us, break us, and ultimately build us into who we're meant to be. I am your host, JC, and today I want to take you on a journey, one that starts with a shovel in the Arizona heat and ends up with a hard lesson about life, addiction, and just the pursuit of something better. When I first moved to Arizona, I was really struggling with the fact that I had to get a job. I mean, I wanted to change, but the way I was raised in Chicago, and this is a little crazy, but most of my friends that I learned from that were drug dealers, most of my friends in Chicago usually have a normal 9-to-5 job, and they drug deal on the side. That way they're able to launder their own money, and so that's the way I learned to do it. You always sold drugs no matter what. You had your 9-to-5, but you always hustled on the side. And I had to realize that my old life wasn't going to work here. I didn't have the connections that I had in Chicago to get rid of drugs. So I had to face the reality that I needed to change. And that meant, working from 9-to-5, a job. And to be honest, I moved out here because I wanted to change. I just didn't know how to. I ended up, one of the jobs that I found was a job as a laborer with a streetlight company, overhead and underground electric. We installed street lights, traffic signals, and even worked on when new homes were being built, all the street lights going up on the streets. And let me tell you, man, this wasn't just any construction job. I was part of some big projects here in Arizona, the Cardinal Stadium parking lot lights, all the new homes developed in Queen Creek, the new 4th Avenue jail. But my journey didn't start at the top. It started at the very bottom with a shovel in my hand in 20-degree weather, just beating you down. I'll never forget my first day. I was in the ground digging with a shovel alongside 6 or 7 Mexicans who probably were here illegally because they didn't speak an ounce of English. All of us making $10 an hour. It was brutal work. One day my hands were bleeding from the blisters from just digging too much, and I couldn't take it no more, man. I got out of the trench and I went to my boss and I asked him, I was like, what do I need to do to get out of that trench? And I'll never forget that day. He looked at me and said, well, what do you know how to do? And broken English, And I was like, okay. That day I realized something important. One, I'm a problem solver. I've been my whole life. So I was going to solve this. So from that day on, that's exactly what I did. I started learning everything I could. I made copies of blueprints. I took them home and read them. I made copies of the keys of all the heavy equipment, backhoes, trenchers, front loaders, back loaders, skid steers. You name it. I made a copy of every kind of construction equipment you could possibly think of. Once everybody went home, I would stay there and practice on the machines. I was determined to get out of that trench. And within months, I did. But let me tell you something. It took that addicting personality that I've always had, that determination that I've always had as a kid, never given up. I think one of the biggest reasons because, everything that happened to me as a kid. I was determined to survive. So I learned how to read the blueprints. I learned how to read the electrical wires because this is all high power stuff, and I learned even the codes to the cities and the permits. And within months, I started moving. The first main thing is that I learned how to operate every single heavy equipment. I got certified through OSHA for construction safety, trench digging, street light level 1, traffic signal installation. OSHA construction. I got certified in everything I could get my hands on. All of this in a matter of months. I got my CDL back because I had lost it in Chicago. And Within, I guess, yeah, I want to say 6 months, they made me the superintendent for the whole company. I was making close to $2,000 a week, company truck, company car, and like I guess you could say the swagger of superintendent, because a superintendent is the big boss. He shows up to the jobs for the inspections. The inspectors are waiting on him. You take them out to eat to make sure all the inspections go accordingly. It was a different kind of boss life. I built a team so strong that we had a record of the most street light posts stood up in one day, and that was 21 was my record. And that was because I had a system. I had a system where as soon as the street poles were delivered, I spread them out by every hole, and I put them on a piece of wood so I don't have to move them to wire them. I was always thinking about saving time. That was my strategic and just in planning, wiring them, standing them up. It would take a crew of 6 of us to do 21 poles, and my boss loved it. Every pole that I stood up was about $2,000 in his pocket. I was good at my job, but I wasn't good at staying sober. I wasn't good at dealing with my demons. I was very into my addiction at this time. I was drinking, doing coke, smoking weed, but the heavy drugs were only on Fridays and Saturdays, so I really wasn't an addict, you know what I mean? That's what we tell ourselves. Things were going so well that I ended up moving to Scottsdale. I still remember the name of the street, Red Wing. It's right by that Saguaro High School. And, I thought I was doing big things because I had the big house now with the pool, the jacuzzi, and the company truck. But slowly my addiction, my drug problem, my drinking problem started to get to me. I think I totaled about 2 vehicles in accidents from not paying attention that year. I started letting the drugs affect my decision making. Despite all the success I had right at the beginning of getting all those licenses and stuff like that, I started to lose control. I had built something great, but my demons were ready to tear it down, just like all the past times. I didn't know how to be functional, I guess. In the end, I was let go. They fired me. They were angry. They couldn't deal with me. I was too much of a problem. I was angry at myself for falling back into my old habits, but that was the story of my life. Like, I was angry at the world for pushing me to that point, and I would be like, but looking back now, I see that it was a lesson that I needed to learn. No matter how good you are or what you do, if you don't take care of yourself, it's going to crash down. And that's one of the biggest things that I do now is I have to step back sometimes and take care of myself. And that's where the real story begins, when you pick yourself up after the fall. Most of you know my story, and yes, I am the founder of Wrong to Strong. This journey has taught me that you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's why self-care and sobriety are at the core of everything I teach. It's not just about being good at your job. It's about being good to yourself first. And it's something that I've struggled with my whole life. I'm not perfect. Far from it. I've stumbled so many times, but I've also gotten up stronger every time. So if you're out there struggling, know that you're not alone. And if you're ready to make a change, we're here to help. Visit us at wrongtostrong.com. Support our work in the prisons, in our halfway house, and the work that we do with the refugees. Help us continue to bring hope and change those who need it the most. Stay strong, keep building those dreams, and remember, transformation is possible. You just have to take the first step. If you've connected with my story today, I invite you to share this podcast, learn, leave a comment, and subscribe. Help us spread the message of hope, transformation, And if you can, please consider donating to support our work. Every dollar helps us reach more people who need to hear that change is possible. Visit us at wrongtostrong.com to learn more and to make donations. Thank you for listening to my shenanigans. My name is JC, and I am Wrong to Strong.